I think one of the hard things about talking about immigration is that it is just that, is that we often talk about it as an issue or a problem, the immigration issue, the immigration problem, in a way that is really abstract. And so, um, and even for me, it's difficult to connect policy, to connect how even to think about this whole issue to real people's lives. So that was part of the power of this experience with Border Links, and just learning that many of these people have the same concerns, the same desires for their lives that many of us do. One man in particular, whom I met in Altar, who was preparing to cross, probably even that night, had been working for a number of years in Washington State in the apple orchards there. His name was Andres, and he had a wife and two young boys who were there in Washington. And yet, because he had grown up most of his life in Mexico, he had decided to risk for the first time in 10 years to come back for Christmas, for the holidays. And so he had come back to, especially to be with his father, who he was concerned might be dying soon. He was in ill health. But as we talked, it was pretty clear somehow or another he had been able to fly to the U.S. the first time, and so this was actually his first time crossing the desert. And it was pretty clear that he didn't have a good idea of what all of the risks were. But as we began to talk, he confessed that he was really afraid, but that there was no way he would not go back to be with his, especially his two young boys, for whom he was really concerned. He showed me a letter that his youngest son had written to him, kind of admonishing him for missing his birthday. So just listening to him and realizing, this is a man who, out of desperation, left his country, who loves his wife, who loves his children in the way that many of our friends and family do, who is just trying to do his best to get by and provide for them and provide the best life that he could imagine for them. And also realizing his connections to home, and over and over again in his story and others' stories whom I met, realizing and having people say again and again, I didn't want to leave. No one wants to leave their home country if they could find the same kinds of opportunities for work, for good housing, for schools for their children. Nobody would leave if they didn't have to. But he and many others have come to a point where they felt like that's their only option. And so now, here he is preparing to literally risk his life in order to continue to care for his family, the same way probably that any of us would do if our loved ones, particularly our children, were depending on us.